Blast me to Cyphos! It's time for the Mad Merlin's Warhammer 40,000 Imperium journey. Episode 24. Lore, Painting Guide, and Mission 1. Hello and welcome back to the Mad Merlin's Warhammer 40,000 Imperium journey. So we've got issue 24 today, and it is a paint issue. The paints we get are Rakarth Flesh, which is a nice creamy bone sort of colour, ideal for cloth, purity seals, and even bones, as I mentioned. Our second paint is one of the most important paints to any paint collection, non-oil, perfect for shading down all those metals, and even certain reds, and blues and greys, of course. So, moving on with our issue, we get an introduction to the Tyranids, paint with shade paints, and we get rules for playing full missions. So, as my magazine's fallen to pieces already, we can just easily flip over. So, we got two new bits for our background information for our play guides. We got weapons and wargear names for the Adeptus Mechanicus, and we've got degradations and grudges for our Necrons. We only have one piece of lore, which is the Tyranids. Our paint guide is putting some extra details on our Ultramarines, and we've got a nice lot of playing pages. We have a tutorial about objective markers and victory points. We have our first set of the advanced rules, and we have our first mission pack, which is the Scout mission. So we got the pack details and mission 1. So on to our new background information for our armies. So first off, we've got the Adeptus Mechanicus weapon names and weapon and wargear names. So the Adeptus Mechanicus are devoted to fabricating and maintaining the Imperium's weapons and technology. Their armed forces are equipped with some of the finest weapons and wargear known to mankind. These lethal relics are works of art, named and revered by those who wield them. So much like with our Ultramarines, this is just a table where we can roll and create names for a lot of our Skitarii wargear items. So we got a D33 table here for wargear names. We got a D33 for ranged weapons, and a D33 for melee weapons. On to the degradations and grudges for Necrons. This is much like the injuries and grudges for the Ultramarines. We've got a table of grudges, so you might have a Necron who seeks vengeance against the Battle Sisters, or even one that wishes to enslave the Adeptus Mechanicus. So the minds and bodies of the Necrons have been deeply affected by hibernation, their minds degraded by the passage of time. Many have formed lasting grudges against those whom they perceive to have wronged them. And then on the back we've got a degradation chart, which is your 2d6 and add the total together for your Necron heroes, and a physical degradation chart for Necron units. Our only piece of lore, should I say, not next, but our next piece of lore in the collection is about Tyranids, so we got yet another inquisitorial report. The Tyranids are alien in the truest sense of the word. They are motivated not by the pursuit of conquest or dominion over the galaxy, but by the urge to devour and survive. When their hive fleets descend, entire star systems are stripped of their nutrients and left as little more than barren, poisonous husks. So we're back with Gallius Sharn for another inquisitorial report, this time on the Tyranids. Got a bit of information about the different types of organisms. So you got feeder organisms, monstrosities, their invasion swarms, and a detail about a captured subject where they managed to get very little out of the subject, other than some growls and snarls and drool. Lots of drool. Anyway, on to our paint guide. So this paint guide, we are using Rakar Flesh to paint a lot of the Ultramarine details, including purity seals, scrolls, and bonework. Most of it will be painting, shading, and then relayering. Then we got Talbards, the Primaris Lieutenant, for painting with Rakar Flesh, and then shading, and then relayering again at the bottom here. And on the aggressors, they all have bones, which simply just painting them with 3 layers of Rakar Flesh, and then giving them a shade, which will be picked up with more bone colours later on when we get them. As for our new shade paint, we're using it to shade all of our metal areas, so the bionic arm, all your guns, the coils on your plasma pistols, and the teeth on the chainsword, and the vents on the back of our Ultramarine backpacks. And again, shading anything that's metal, so we've got the talisman around the neck of the aggressors, the weapon hilts, purity seal waxes, and the cords around the captain and the aggressors are being washed and on as well. And we are recess shading the cloak on the Primaris Librarian. If you haven't already, this is just a simple making sure you got a neat base layer first, running the paint with a thin tipped brush into the recesses, making sure you soak up anything that's overfilled, and then once it's dried, touch up any areas by smoothing over some more Adeptus Mechanicus Grey. And we've got a gallery at the back of all our finished models. So we've got one little tutorial which is all about objective markers and victory points. And in the back of the issue you do have some victory points, but I already have mine from the Premium Conquest collection, so I'll be using those for my playthroughs. And the objectives, I'm going to be digging out the objective set I got from Conquest and making it up on some 40mm bases to take the place of these lovely cardboard objective markers, as they will get worn out over time. So on the back of the sheet we have a rule reference about how to control objectives. So you need to have more models within 3 inches of the objective, and in most cases it is measured from the edge of the objective outwards 3 inches. As we can see here, there's 2 Necrons and a swarm of Scarabs, and only 2 Space Marines. And at the bottom we have a tutorial and detail how to score victory points. So at the end of the command phase of Battle Round 3, Space Marines are in control of 2 objectives and so score the points for those objectives. In this example, it's 1 point for each one. So we get our first advanced rules, which is for the full rules set of the Warhammer 40,000 game. So this details how missions are structured, and will be important to how we go forward with our collection. So it details the objective markers and the objective secured rule. So certain units will have a rule called objective secured. This means that even if only one model is in range of the objective, they hold it regardless of any amount of enemy models, unless they also have objective secured, in which case you control it as normal. We're on to our Scout mission pack. So we are starting the planetary campaign for the moon Cyphos, and we have a mission pack called Scout. So we have the rules for the mission pack in itself. So we go through the steps as we set up the battle. Most of the missions will tell you to use a certain set of models. For this one we are using the Royal Warden, 10 warriors and 3 Scarab Swarms, the Librarian and 3 aggressors. But we create the battlefield. Again, it will be detailed in the mission. You deploy your armies, determine first turn, then we begin the battle, end the battle and determine your victor. So as we can see, that's our first mission, just a simple control the center of the battlefield sort of mission. So I will set up the battlefield and we will start our first proper mission. Okay, we've gathered our forces, prepared our battlefield, and our token and dice supply are prepared at the side of the battlefield. So, Cipher Recovery. The initial Necron invasion of Cyphos has swept across the moon in force, overwhelming the Imperial defenders with its sheer brutality. To make matters worse, an Imperial code cipher has been lost in action. If the Necrons recover this device, the cryptex will be able to decode Imperial communications. A force of Space Marines, led by a Librarian from the Ultramarines Vanguard, must infiltrate enemy lines and extract its data core before the Necrons locate it. Necrons, Royal Warden. Secure the battlefield. A Necron Royal Warden and his patrol have observed the Space Marines searching the corpses of the fallen. Whatever the foe seek, he and his warriors must locate and secure it before the Space Marines. Should his forces be able to completely annihilate the Space Marine foes, all the better. Space Marines, Librarian. A priority objective, Cipher. The Librarian's orders are clear. Secure the Cipher, destroy targets of opportunity, and withdraw swiftly. The arrival of Necron forces has complicated matters. His forces must secure the Cipher device's data core and prevent the Necrons from retrieving any information of their own. Okay, so the forces in play, as you can see, are the Royal Warden, 10 warriors, and 3 Scarab Swarms, a Librarian, and 3 aggressors. Our battlefield is our second game mat, with no terrain needed. We have a single objective marker at the centre. So, the first thing to do before we can begin the game is to deploy our forces. So, the rules say that, starting with the Necron player, you take it in turns to deploy a unit. So units must be wholly within a deployment zone, and for this mission that is 3 inches from the ends of each of the game edges. So we'll start with the Scarabs, put them over here I think. Right, the Ultramarines get to play down a unit next. And I think to be safe, we're going to put our Librarian over there. Now the Necrons get to put a unit down, and we'll go with our unit of 10 warriors. Here in the center of the battlefield. Finally, our aggressors. Will deploy here in order to rush forward for the objective. And the Necron side, the Royal Warden, will deploy back here. So, to find out who has first turn, we roll a dice. So, Space Marines, 5. Necrons, 5. Reroll, 6, and 4. So, Ultramarines get first turn, which might just be good for them. So, I will play my first turn, and I'll be right back. Okay, we've completed turn 1. As you can see, both forces advanced. The aggressors didn't do too well. They only got 1 inch on their advance roll. Librarian shot at the board, though, with an advance of 11 total inches. Scarabs advanced 10 and tried to charge, but didn't get the charge on the aggressors. In the Necron shoot phase, though, the 5 warriors with Gauze Blasters failed to do any damage to the aggressors, but the Royal Warden killed 1. And the 5 here with the Gorz Reapers did 4 wounds to our Librarian. So, we'll move our turn tracker on. And now we'll play turn 2. Okay, end of round 2. Oh, I forgot the Scarabs didn't fight back. Just 1 auto wound and 5s. So 1 wound, 2 wounds to save. Both saved. So end of round 2, the aggressors have charged the Scarabs and pretty much eliminated most of the squad. The warriors finished off the poor Librarian as he tried to control Objective 1. And the Ultramarines did score 1 point as they managed to control the objective. But it is now into turn 3. And we will see what happens. I don't think it's going to go too well for the Ultramarines, sadly. Alright, turn 3, and our poor aggressor has been surrounded near enough. The Librarian last turn died. We lost an aggressor to shooting. The Sergeant suffered 1 wound, but he's managed to hold himself up in combat, luckily. He did do 2 wounds against the Royal Warden. Sadly, his hits weren't as good as they could have been. Necrons have scored 1 victory point though, and it is now on to turn 4. I think this will be the end of the turn, end of the game. Even if the aggressor did roll well, I don't think he's going to survive too long. Here we go with turn 4. Well, that was quick. End of turn 4, at the start of turn 4 actually, the poor aggressor sergeant got swamped by Necron warriors. He failed 2 free-up saves with a 1 and a 2. And was sadly wiped out. The warriors moved on to the objective and the Warden backed them up. So at the end of turn 4 they scored 1 point, and if I had played turn 5 they would have scored another point. Necrons are victorious on our first mission. So, on to debrief, and we'll see what's in our next Imperium. So there we have our first full mission for Warhammer 40,000. So in this mission, the Necrons managed to emerge victorious. The Emperor was not with the aggressors, and they failed a lot of their saves. And as usual, my Librarian hates to do well on camera. He only managed to kill 1 Necron warrior with his smite. And other than that, he didn't do a lot, I'm afraid. The aggressors did do pretty well. They wiped out the Scarabs, but got swamped by weight of numbers with the Necron warriors. But anyway, on to our next Imperium. And we've got a rather nice issue in the form of issue 25, the Necron Immortals. So this is the full Necron Immortals plastic kit, giving you the options of Gorz blasters or Tesla carbines. And you also have the option to build them up as death marks, although they do not have the instructions in the magazine. We get full rules to the Immortals as well as a tutorial. And in issue 26 we get our first HQ for the Adeptus Mechanicus, our Tech Priest Dominus. This again is a full multi-part kit and comes with lots of lovely detail and choice of weapons, although the battle profile does state that you have to use the Volkite and the Serpentia pistol. Other than that, you do get just a lovely model. You get his full rules as well, and we get a playthrough including him and the Skitarii. So that's all for issue 24 of Imperium. So I'd like to thank you all for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. Also, if you'd like to help the channel out, there's my affiliate link for Curton Games as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page. and I will see you next time for more mad content. Goodbye.